Hi everybody, it's Victor Medina and welcome back to video 2 in a 3-video series leading up to your appointment with the Medina Law Group. Now in the first video, I talked a little bit about the firm, and in the third video tomorrow, I'll talk about what to expect in the meeting. But in this video, I want to talk about some commonly misunderstood planning concepts that a lot of clients have told us that it'd be good to cover in a video like this before the meeting. So I'm going to cover 2 concepts today. I'm going to cover what a trust is, and I'm going to cover powers of attorney. Now, a trust is one of those planning concepts that sounds more complicated than it really is. In fact, a lot of people believe that a trust is only something that the rich people use and it's got to be overly complicated. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, a trust is one of the most convenient and cost-effective ways to do planning once you understand how it works and what the goals are. So the best way that I've found to describe what a trust is I like to say that it's a form of a container. It's a box. It's a box that holds your stuff. Now, the goals of this box can be different. You might use it just to organize your things. You might want the box to look like a safe to help protect assets. Or you might want the box to be located someplace that would make it difficult to apply taxes or to apply a creditor. And in each one of those cases, it's nothing more than a box holding something. So if we're going to talk about trusts and your planning, realize that this isn't something that has to do with the amount of wealth that you have or what kind of complicated structure that you want to where it goes. In fact, the most commonly used form of a trust is a revocable living trust that clients use to organize their affairs to make sure that everything's in order no matter what happens to them along the way. Trust is very powerful with disability planning, for instance, where it can do more than what a power of attorney can do in helping you manage your assets if you become incapacitated. A trust is also used when we're looking to protect assets against the devastating cost of long-term care. Many people want to make sure that if they get sick, that the nursing home isn't going to take their assets where their spouse is impoverished or where they have no more choices but the kind of care that they receive or where they receive it. So it really doesn't matter what kind of goal you have in mind for your trust. If you realize that it's nothing more than a box, then you understand that it's not a very complicated tool at all. Now, it's written out in paper, and we use a lot of words in the paper to make sure that we've covered explaining how the trust works in different circumstances. Because when the trust comes down to being interpreted, we want to make sure that there are a lot of answers to questions in the future. And we don't know what the questions are going to be, so we include as many answers as possible. But when we think about the difference between a trust and a will, realize that they're both just tools to help you organize your stuff when you get sick or when you become incapacitated, and there are advantages to using a trust over a will when you want to make sure that things stay in the bloodline, for instance, or when you want to make sure that your daughter's inheritance doesn't go to your son-in-law. Those are all reasons to use a trust over a will, and we're going to make it super easy to understand how to operate your trust so that if that's what we're recommending for you, you know that it's not something that's going to be overcomplicated to deal with. Now, the other concept I want to talk about today are powers of attorney. And those are another planning concept that people think that they get, but really don't understand how it works when the rubber meets the road. So for instance, power of attorney is one of those documents that's only determined to be effective when we go to use it. So you can sign one in an office, but until you go to use that document when you become incapacitated, you don't have a good sense about whether or not it's going to be accepted. So when we review a power of attorney, or when we think about what kinds of powers of attorney are most effective, we think about their use in the future. And so you think about how broad is it? Just like the trust, we want a lot of answers to different kinds of questions, because if you become incapacitated and you go to use this power of attorney, and it's deemed to be ineffective, well, we can't get you to sign a new one because you're incapacitated. So we want to make sure that we've made it as broad as possible. And the other issue is that financial institutions will have different policies about how old a power of attorney can be when you go to present it. So sometimes they want ones that are as young as 3 years or younger. Some of them will take them up to 10 years. So it's best not to leave it up to chance. And in fact, when you sign a power of attorney that we've created, one of the recommendations that we make is that you field test it. Go bring it to your financial institutions to figure out whether or not it would be effective if you became incapacitated. The time to figure out the answer to that question is now, while you still have capacity. Now, if you're doing planning for a loved one and you already have a power of attorney, we might review that and tell you what it does and doesn't do. And in those situations, we kind of have to live with the result. So it's important to understand that the power of attorney is something that helps you manage finances, and it's different than a healthcare power of attorney or a living will. And you might need 2 or 3 of these different kinds of documents to help you manage your affairs when you become incapacitated. So that's a quick overview on trusts and powers of attorney. And if there are any of these topics that you wanted to know more about, certainly you can read the chapters in the book that I published that would help you understand them a little bit more. You can look on the website or check out any of the radio shows that I've broadcast that talk about different planning techniques. You can find out more about the radio show by going to makeitlastradio.com or searching on iTunes for a podcast called Make It Last. So those are just 2 quick topics, and we know that there are a lot more, but hopefully those 2 areas will help bolster your knowledge so that when you come in for the meeting, you'll understand a little bit more about these planning concepts and realize how they affect you and why they might be important to look at and make sure that they work when you need them. So that's been the second video. Thanks so much for watching, and tomorrow we'll talk about what to expect when you come into the office for your meeting. Thanks again for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.